I can spell.
You rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I was rejected.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I think I agree with you.
And to call to order a regular meeting of the Lower Gwinnett Board of Supervisors for March 28th, 2022. Michelle, if you could put in the record that we had an executive session prior to the meeting regarding, I don't know what that was regarding, legal
Legal and personnel.
legal and personnel. We're going to start off our meeting with a presentation by William Blair from Wireless Realty Advisors on cell coverage mapping. Are you with us, Mr. Blair?
Yes, I am here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome, great. Yeah, so thank you very much for having me, for allowing me to present, provide more information. And thank you, Craig, for working with my schedule. I know we've been trying to get this on the calendar for a few, so I appreciate working with me to get this on here. Yeah, so I'll probably just provide a quick overview of the project and the survey. And if I can, I'd like to, kind of share my screen just to kind of showcase the platform and the data a little bit. I think it'll be helpful for everybody to kind of just see how how it interacts with the platform, and it's kind of just easier for everyone to see and understand. So yeah, kind of without further ado, I'll kind of just jump right into it. So again, I'm William Blair with Wireless Realty Advisors, and we are kind of a wireless cell site and cell tower owner operator developer. So we acquire, manage, and develop cell towers and cell site assets. And we actually keep a database of about 200 to 225,000 cell towers and cell sites and counting across the country that we use, kind of for the arms of our business. So acquiring, developing cell towers and cell sites. And we actually, back in 2020, created cell coverage mapping, the project and survey I'm going to be kind of discussing. We created cell coverage mapping, and cell coverage mapping is a web-based platform that we created that allows cell phone users to go in and submit where they are experiencing a lack of or poor cell coverage service. So if I'm kind of going to share my screen now, if that's all right. Can everyone see my screen here?
Yep. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. So this is the cell coverage mapping platform here. This is where the link. And kind of we use a QR code system to kind of reach our customers. Everything is through social media advertising. So that's how the platform kind of reaches cell phone users. But it's kind of a very simple platform. You simply kind of see here it says stop the drop. Click map to begin. And you'll click here, and it will bring you to a map. Where you can kind of scroll in and go to a location where you are experiencing a cell coverage issue, whether that's a dropped call, you have no data, or you have no service at all. So I'll kind of just scroll in here, go up here towards kind of the Lower Gwinnett area. And you can either type in an address or kind of just click somewhere on a map. I believe the address is 1130 North Bethlehem Pike. So I'll go here, and once you kind of select know your location, you'll go in and describe your coverage issue. So it asks you 3 questions, kind of what coverage issue are you experiencing? Is that no coverage, where you don't have any service, you can't make a call, you can't really do anything. A dropped call where obviously you're talking on the phone and the call drops and ends due to a lack of capacity or service. And then no data, which is usually if you are using a smartphone, you're trying to go on the internet stream. That's usually when it's either slow or it's not loading at all. That's a sign of no data. So it asks you to describe your coverage issue. I'll kind of just go in and submit once to no coverage. It asks you who your carrier is. Obviously Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile kind of are the majority. We also have the lower MVNOs listed as well. And then just asks your phone type, iPhone, Galaxy, or other. We haven't found that to be very useful, but we do gather that data. So once you submit the coverage issue, basically says thank you for taking your part and submitting. And then on the back end, we receive that kind of on a back end dashboard. So all the submissions will come in here. And we're actually able to kind of aggregate this back into the platform where we have our tower and cell site database located. We also have a bit of a heat map here that kind of, let's go back here. We have a heat map that shows a density of the complaints and where the complaints tend to cluster. But then what we do is we aggregate that data and we basically, it kind of comes to us, we download it and export it out to Google Earth, where our cell site and cell tower database is located. And I'll kind of just showcase this here. This would be Springhouse. Can everybody see my Google Earth okay?
Yes.
Yes. All right, great. So this is Springhouse, PA here. So
You said Google Earth? No, we can't see
Yes.
Google Earth. We can see your.
Oh, you
screen.
can't see Google Earth?
No. We just see the list.
Let's see. Let me just stop my share for 1 second and reshare it.
Drop this coverage.
Yeah.
I just had to reshare it and do Google Earth. It was a different window. Sorry about that. I did. That's good. I like that. Can everybody see it now?
Yes.
This would be a map. Okay, great. Awesome. So yeah, right here, this would be Springhouse, PA, just on our map. And so over here in these pink teardrop pins that you see would be the existing towers and cell sites, so existing antenna sites. And this is kind of what our database, just the data that we have. So it's a cell tower, that's the structure it is. It usually has the property type, the address, the location. And then we also tend to have, carrier info and who the tower owner as well. So this is a cell tower that's owned by SBA Communications. They're one of the, large publicly traded tower companies. But so this is usually what we see. And then the carrier info usually comes when we pull our database from the registry of deeds. We're usually able to kind of identify who the carrier is through the lease and some of the other documents, which is kind of where we stored that information. And then here, we don't have too much data. I believe we got a few complaints in the area from when we, we actually did some regional mapping in Pennsylvania back in February of 2021. Where we, kind of channeled, directly to the state of Pennsylvania on social media and kind of directed our efforts there. And picked up a few data points here. So I'll click on this. And everything is color coordinated. So we have, this was just a no data complaint, Verizon, and it actually shows us here how the data point was conceived. So this came from Facebook and tells us the campaign that it came from. It was a pilot campaign. Tells us the date when we got the complaint, and then the address, city and state, lat long as well. So this is kind of how we see the data come in. Obviously, there's not much here to show, but I do kind of want to showcase the town of Palmer, Massachusetts, which is where we actually ran one of our first kind of town-sponsored campaigns. And so how the campaign would work, kind of the survey being sponsored is, we would provide the town with their own QR code, which would directly lead them to kind of their own landing site, which would be used just for the residents of Lower Gwinnett Township to go in and submit for them to go in and submit their coverage issues, just like I kind of showed on the screen. And so in Palmer, we had this, again, is just kind of a map of the existing layout and where they have tower sites. So through kind of the mapping in the national database, we got a few complaints in the Palmer area. But when we had the town run, a municipally sponsored campaign, they kind of supplemented efforts and posted flyers around town. We did some direct mail. They really posted flyers. I believe it was at the town center, the post office, just to kind of supplement, get the word out there. And then we also target residents of the town via social media as well. But I'll kind of go ahead and turn on the data. So we ran the campaign for about 30 to 35 days in Palmer, and this was just kind of the data that we received at the completion of the survey. So it was over about 200 submissions, and this is color coded based on carrier. So red would be Verizon Wireless, blue is AT&T, purple T-Mobile. And so we received a ton of feedback from members of the community regarding their wireless cell service. And despite, the numerous kind of pink pins and wireless cell sites, throughout the town and the community, we still got, a ton, over 200, submissions of people saying, hey, I have no service or I have poor wireless service. And basically kind of what we do with this data is we provide, ultimately at the completion of the survey, we provide the town, the municipality, the township in this case, with the data. So it would kind of be brought in on the back end submission. The town would receive the data for free. We don't charge the township any cost to run the survey for the results. But what we do offer is a bit of an analysis that we can do for municipally owned parcels, privately owned parcels. We can also share those with carriers that we believe would be interested in developing infrastructure in the township based on the data that we collect. So for example, here in Palmer, we reached out to the carriers, worked with the town to identify a few areas where it would be kind of ideal and it would work for tower development. We share those locations with the cell phone carriers, and ultimately right now at the moment we actually are working kind of with the carrier on some possible siting solutions here in Palmer. So ultimately that kind of just goes to show what from beginning of the survey to collecting the survey, it ultimately kind of shows what the data can do and can provide. So that is kind of pretty much the gist of the presentation. I hope I was able to keep that pretty brief. But if anyone has any questions, please feel free to kind of rattle those off.
I have a bunch of questions, but thank you so much for that comprehensive overview. So I think you kind of, oh, my phone dropped.
Oh, sorry, I can put that back up if you need me to.
No, I think you articulated one of the areas in Lower Gwinnett that we know that we have poor cell service, which is in Spring House, specifically on Penland Pike. But so
Okay.
You're wanting individuals to utilize through a QR code submitting to you kind of reports of poor or lack of service via their phone where they have no service?
Yes, that's correct. So where anywhere they feel that where they have experienced any sort of poor or lack of cell coverage, whether that's at their home, when they're driving to work, if they're out walking their dog. It's really kind of just for members of the community to kind of go in and say, hey, this is where I'm experiencing no cell coverage. I think it's basically so we can understand where members of a certain community want and need coverage ultimately.
And you pinpoint that on the GI. I guess you're missing kind of what I was saying. If there is no service, how are they going to submit that to you?
So, right, they would need to be in a place and have service to go in and file that complaint. So you would need to, I guess, kind of mark, that location and say, at this point in time, I'm here.
So it doesn't interrupt.
You ultimately would need service to.
So it doesn't interrupt the GIS plotting that you're trying to do.
No,
okay.
Right, it's just plotting of data. It's just consumers plotting data on a map.
So I kind of understood what you talked about, what you did in Palmer and how the 200 submissions. I don't know what the population of Palmer was, but based upon that survey over a period of 30 to 32 days, you gathered 200 submissions of areas that they had poor or no service. So then what's the resolution? How did you actually resolve it? Is it through enacting additional cell towers? Are you able to pinpoint specifically where they need cell towers or where the cell tower needs to be stronger? What's the resolution, I guess?
Yeah, so the resolution, or at least how we try and begin to resolve that, is we reach out to the carriers of the data that we collect. So if we collect a ton of data from a certain carrier, we know that we need to approach that carrier. So we'll approach that carrier, we'll reach out to the site acquisition firms that we know are contracted to do work for them. And we basically just kind of tell our story and say, hey, we collected a ton of data. of users of your service are reporting that a ton of data here. We pretty much just tell it how it is. We have a ton of data here of your customers complaining, and we have some possible solutions here. Like I said earlier, we identify a few locations that would be ideal for tower development, and we share those locations with the carriers. So we start to identify the solution. It's not all the time that we are able to identify one, but we make that effort.
So around individuals using QR codes, I have a son who's into computers and kind of tells me to stop doing this, but I know that sharing your information, you're voluntarily sharing your information with an entity without really any idea of how that could potentially be used in the future. So what are the protections about preserving an individual's privacy?
Yep. So we have a privacy policy on the website as well. I can kind of share some of that as additionally, but it's all the data we gather is confidential. The locations are shared. We use Latin long coordinates when we share the locations with the carriers. We don't use addresses. So ultimately, when everything is shared externally, it's shared in a location and a data coordinate rather than an actual address. So that is one way that we protect, just in the event that some of these consumers are using their home address or reporting a dead zone at their home. So we don't share exact addresses externally. Those are kept kind of in-house, if you will.
I didn't get it. I haven't seen your privacy policy, but I'm just concerned about it. If we as a township are encouraging our residents to participate in it, are we exposing them in any way to their information, whether it be through their cell phone or whatever's on their phone, to be sold to a third party or accessed by you beyond just the location?
No, because they're not entering any sort of information besides who their phone carrier is, what their location of their described issue, and what phone they have. They're not entering any sort of personal information, their name. So there's really kind of no information, personal information that we could really kind of share or divulge.
Okay. And so what is the cost to our municipality or any municipality who would participate in this?
So if the township is simply interested in having us run the survey and provide the town with the results and the data of the survey, there is no cost for that. We will run the survey in the town at no cost. Now, if the town is interested in having us, do a bit of an analysis of municipally owned parcels and privately owned parcels, and potentially work with the carriers and reach out, there is some pricing on that. I'd have to get an updated pricing from our model, but I could certainly provide that within a day or two. But just for the town to run the cost there, for the town to run the survey and collect the data and have us provide the data, there is no cost.
Yeah, I think we've done a unscientific survey. We know that there's areas that we don't have cell service, but I would appreciate, I guess, an official one. So as far as the analysis of the parcels, there's no guarantee that there is actually going to be a resolution or an increase, or that there's going to be a solution where we actually have increased cell service. But you would be doing that analysis and providing it to the carriers in the hopes that they somehow, through whatever mitigating factors that they can address, fix the cell service?
Right, exactly. We would hope that they would partner with us to develop a cell tower or cell site to ultimately provide additional coverage.
Okay. And that's all the questions I have. Does it, any other questions from the board?
I just have a question. Mr. Blair, is Tom Remillard affiliated with your company?
Yes, Tom Remillard is affiliated with our company. Yeah, he's with Wireless Realty Advisors. We are with Wireless Realty Advisors.
Okay. For what it's worth, unbeknownst to me until I just asked that question, Tom Remillard and I are fraternity brothers. Say hello to Tommy for me.
I will.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah. So what is your business model? Your business model is to come into a community, do a survey, and then sell that information to the carriers?
Yeah, so our business model, again, we're very new. We started this platform, and this isn't our only business. This is actually a platform that we created to actually kind of supplement data for wireless realty advisors. But yeah, basically our business model is to partner with municipalities. We offer to run the survey at no cost simply because we actually would like to provide the township with this data so that they are equipped with the data of where their residents want coverage. And I know you had mentioned that, you understand, you probably know where dead spots in the township are. But yeah, our model is then to partner with municipalities, towns, townships, to work with them to identify areas that could be developed into possible future infrastructure. And that's kind of where we run into our model. Again, we're very new, kind of just really in beginning trial runs, if you will. So honestly, our business model is kind of being tested, but at the moment, that's kind of what it is.
So this is your elevator pitch you're giving us.
Sure, yes.
I'm not seeing the benefit of what you're doing here, beyond the residents calling directly the carriers that represent their area and getting help. So you're just collating the data and.
Yeah, we're collecting the data in hopes to provide residents of whatever community we're working in to ultimately work to provide them with infrastructure solutions, because the chances of a customer or myself just calling Verizon and saying, hey, I have coverage, will you try and do anything about it? You're not really going to reach anyone meaningful. It's extremely hard for even us to get the carriers to come and do something. So, what we try to do is we try to ultimately find areas where we know that customers have poor coverage and where we can go in and look to provide a siting solution is ultimately what we're looking to do.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Do you have, I think Danielle mentioned this, but do you have like a sample or, approximate costs for what your proposed next steps typically are when you identify these dead zones, so that we could better understand what the future cost to the township may be, even though the survey is at no cost?
Yes, off the top of my, there, just because I have to, again, I have to kind of run it through the pricing model to see.
Yeah, you don't need to share it with me at this moment, but I just,
Okay.
if you have that.
Yeah, I
could
definitely can share that with
us.
absolutely.
So we could
Absolutely.
consider that. And I will say, just speaking to the customer calling Verizon, I have a dead zone in my house, and they tell me there's towers everywhere and I should have perfect service. So that's kind of the remedy. So I do think it's beneficial to have somebody advocating for the township and for the residents,
Right.
proposing solutions, but thank you.
Oh. I just had one other question. How many municipalities or how many cities or places have you done this successfly? Or how many in total and how many successfully?
Yeah, so in total, we've done this with about, I believe it's about 6 or 7 municipalities, so some towns, some townships, and successfully, where we're actually kind of working with the carrier actively to possibly and work to provide solutions at the moment too. So again, we are kind of, still early phases. But yeah, we are actively working with 2 towns in New England and working with a few carriers ultimately for them to explore some opportunities at a few municipally owned properties.
Any other, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Are
No,
there
no
any other
worries.
questions? Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? I see one hand raised online. Deborah Schaefer?
This is Deborah Schaefer at 823 Penland Pike. I think you sort of answered the question that I was going to ask about a track record. I think that those of us who live in the township in dead zones are quite aware that we're in a dead zone, and so
Yep.
is Verizon. So, are your pitch tonight, is this to get us on board to see if you can become a successful lobbying entity to get more cell towers? But I'm not quite sure what the point of your business is. Sorry.
No, so the point of what we do is to collect data and ultimately collect data and kind of share that data with the carriers in hopes of advocating for residents of the township that we're currently working in, to advocate and see if we can mitigate these coverage issues that we're collecting to ultimately provide better coverage to members of the township. Because ultimately, we would look to, develop or build an additional site or use some sort of existing infrastructure, whether that's a water tank or some existing alternative structure. We would look to possibly develop that and develop a new site ultimately that we would own. That would be a Wireless at Realty Advisors cell site. So that is kind of where that would come into play, is we're ultimately looking to use this data and turn it into a possible solution for residents of the township.
But that there's no guarantee at any point, short or long term, that your service can remedy the situation.
Right. There is no guarantee. There absolutely is no guarantee that we can remedy the situation. But we do attempt to at least reach out to the carrier for them to understand that they need to remedy the situation, at least, is what we try to do.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions from the public? Seeing none, thank you so much, Mr. Blair, for taking the time and explaining your business to us and giving us the opportunity to review it. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Again, I appreciate it. And if there's any additional questions, please feel free to contact me. I believe Kathleen has my contact info, and Craig may as well. But if anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to contact me.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, on to our next agenda item. Receipt of the minutes on March 14th, 2022. Meeting minutes. Have everyone had a chance to look over the minutes?
Yes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from March 14th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Next is the receipt of the invoice history for February 2022. Has everyone had a chance to review the invoice history for February 2022?
Yes.
Are there any questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries to accept the receipt of the invoice history for February 2022. Next up is the consideration of a bid for our 2022 road program. I think that is Jim Hirsch.
Thank you, Danielle.
Mhm.
So we opened the bids for the road program for paving and micro surfacing. We have two contracts in front of you for consideration. The first one is for the milling and paving program. We had 5 bids. The lowest one is Highway Materials Incorporated. We have worked with Highway Materials in this township in the past. We feel comfortable that they can do the work. The amount of the bid and the award would be $295,053.60. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for, and this is for the entirety of the milling and paving program. Are there any questions from the board?
Is this within our budget, Craig, for this?
All right, so it's not the entirety of the road maintenance program. This is for milling and paving, which was one contract. And then I have a second bid for a separate contract, just to clarify. But at the end of the day, the combined totals of these awards are within $2,000 of what your budgeted amount was for.
Under.
Under, yes.
It's about $6,000 under budget.
Thank you.
Great work.
This, and the milling and paving is just the base bid and alternate two. We eliminated alternate one.
Right, saw that.
Is there any question?
What's the downside to eliminating alternate one? I mean, what's the difference between the two? I mean, I saw that they were significant price increases.
$117,000.
Forget the numbers. What are we getting? What are we giving? Doing the worst part of the road. That section was actually better shape. Okay, so we're just triaging the worst stuff and dealing with that right now. Okay. Gotcha, thank you.
We were staying within budget and we were hoping for better bid, but that's why we did the alternate one, alternate two, because in case they came in high due to fuel costs, we were able to eliminate.
And if we agree to the proposal, we're locked in at that rate. There'll be no fuel surcharge, or there could be.
There could be a fuel surcharge. They bid based on the price index this month. If it were to go up, there could be an increase, but I think it's capped at like 5%.
If it goes down, do we get a discount or deduction?
That's a good question. We have that question now.
Yeah,
do
and
have
I believe that you do.
Yeah, I mean, if it's tied to some index, that's easy enough to
Yeah.
figure out.
Exactly. Generally speaking, it goes up in the summer, but in the instances that we're
It's
in,
high right
it
now.
could absolutely go down.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
I have a question that's not directly with respect to these bids, but there's a lot of road work right now going on in our township. And do we anticipate that there's going to be additional work from connections with the new roads? Is that in our budget anywhere? Or is that not something we have to think about?
Additional roads as far as connection.
Well, like all the work on 202, where our roads intersect with 202. Do we anticipate we're going to have to put additional funds into, repairing that intersection?
Any roads that tie into the 202 widening would be within their scope of work to at least,
Okay,
pave the tie-ins, and then the remainder of that road is our responsibility, but, in the plan to repave at some point.
okay.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, so what we have before us is the bid for highway materials in the total amount of $295,053.60. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept said bid.
Is there-
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi,
Opposed? Motion carries for exception of the bid for the 2022 road program. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have one more.
Go ahead.
But you're welcome. So the second contract is for the ultra-thin bonded wearing course.
Mhm.
We actually only received one bid, and it is from the same company that has done this for us for the last probably 6 years now, and it's Asphalt Maintenance Solutions. Similarly, actually, no, we are going to award the alternate bid here. So the total is $173,630.55, and obviously we've worked with them before, so we feel comfortable that they can complete the work.
Are they the only company that does it? Is that? why
Yeah,
we don't-
they're like the only company in this region that does it, and
Sounds like a business opportunity.
exactly, there you go.
Is there any questions for anyone else on the board? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? So what we have before us is the acceptance of the ultra-thin bond wearing course project by Asphalt Maintenance Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $173,630.55. Is there a motion?
so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have accepted the second bid for the ultra-thin bonding. Again, thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Next up, we have termination of lease of the 409 Old Bethlehem, Old Penland Pike. Currently, right now, we do lease 409 Penland Pike to an organization. The lease is month to month. So what we have before us is the opportunity or the consideration to terminate that lease. I think the lease contract is before you, or was the lease involved in the manager's report. So you had time to read it. It is the old McCormick house and the storage space behind. Is there any questions from anyone on the board?
I don't have a question, but I would like to say that I had an opportunity to meet with our Public Works Director last week. And he's done a remarkable job of clearing out the Ingersoll barn of equipment. The trailers are gone. There's still some things inside. The brine tanks will be gone as soon as they're emptied. Really done a great job doing something that needed to be done, and they've done it expeditiously and professionally. The problem, as we all know, is we don't have a lot of space in this town. And one of the spaces we have is at the McCormick House garage. One of the things that Mr. Zollers is going to talk about in a bit is the purchase of a new tractor to better mow our stream beds and trails. And there's, the reason that we're moving things out of the Ingersoll barn is because those neighbors don't want it there. We need space. This is a space that the township owns. They've owned it for 2 years. The current occupants had a lease until the end of December. They asked to extend it. We didn't agree to that, but so the lease continues month to month. They're trying to get a spot in Upper Dublin. They've tried to get a couple of different spots. I don't think it's going as well as they would like. I'm not suggesting that we throw the tenant out on the street, but it's a 30-day termination notice. We'll certainly want to work with them, but what Mr. Zoller is probably going to tell us is going to take a couple months to get this tractor, and then we have to find a home for it. We can't buy a new piece of equipment and not have a home for it. So we need the space. And that's why I would advocate for terminating the lease.
Thank you. Is there any question from anyone on the board? Any questions from the audience or the public?
Are there plans for the building itself on the middle ground? There are no current plans for the building, but we are working with Gilmore to do an analysis of our parks. And we'll work with the Little League, seeing it as it's right there at the field. The answer is no, but there are plans to have plans. Does that make sense? We're in the beginning stages of doing our analysis of the parks. No, it's a great question. My plan is that it doesn't sit the way it does for very much longer. That's my plan.
Is there any other questions from the public? Seeing none, we have before us motion to terminate the lease at our 409 Old Penland Pike. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It passes, and we have terminated the lease at our 409 Old Penland Pike location, which is the McCormick House.
I would just add, why don't we have Craig work with Neil to
Yes.
take care of the appropriate
And just for clarification, that's what I
Formalities.
was going to say. It doesn't mean that immediately we throw people on the street. Craig and Neil will work with the current tenants to make arrangements as far as a smooth transition to their new location.
agreed.
Thank you. Next up, we have ordinance 529, Lower Gwinnett Township term limits. We voted at our last supervisor meeting, which I believe was March 14th, and advertised the language that you see attached, or that you saw attached in the advertisement and you see on the screen above. There has been ongoing conversations with our solicitor around the language. And we would like to make some clarifying changes to the language. However, we realize that there may be people here that want to comment on the ordinance as it stands. So moving forward, once our solicitor does clarify, update, what did you say? Revise. There we go, all the synonyms. The language, he will circulate it back to us, and then, next steps will be taken. If there is anyone here that wants to discuss the ordinance as it stands, I can open it up to the board. Are there any comments or statements anyone wants to make? Seeing none, is there any comments from the public? Seeing none. So our solicitor will be taking a review of this and revise this language for us to consider moving forward. So I guess essentially, do I have to state that we're tabling the item? Do we have to vote to table the item?
I think you just said that.
Okay, very good. All right. Next up is resolution 2022, the disposition of records. The language identifies that we, as Lower Gwinnett, are declaring that we're intent to follow the schedule and procedures of the disposition of records set forth in the Municipal Records Manual that was approved on December 16th, 2008, and amended March 28th, 2019. It's in accordance with Act 428 of 1968, and each individual act of disposition shall be approved by the resolution of the governing body. So it basically identifies what records we are going to dispose of, their year, in great detail. It was included in our manager's report. I'm not sure if we can put it up for the public to see. Are there any questions from the board regarding this resolution? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public?
Is there a 30,000-foot explanation of what the changes are?
Craig, do you want to talk about the changes? I think it's really just us authorizing us to dispose of them. It's not actual change.
Yeah, this is destruction of paper documents in the township that we are allowed under the municipal records code that, so we don't have a bunch of paper in here. This goes hand in hand with the e-shredding or the e-cycle and paper shredding day, which we have extended to the public. So we used to bring the company in. We used to destroy the paper that we could, and then they would leave. We thought we would open that up. So this goes hand in hand with April 9th recycling or paper shredding day.
Yeah, the law requires us to retain these documents for a certain amount of time.
Yes, most of it's 7 years.
Mhm.
So
Are there electronic copies, even though we're destroying the paper copies?
not for everything, no.
Certain things after the time expires, you can just dispose of them.
Correct.
So we're not making any changes. We're just notifying them that we're throwing our stuff away.
Yeah, we have to update this every year.
But thank you. I'm sorry for the people online. That was Mark Schaefer. Is there any other questions from the public? Seeing none, we have before us the resolution 2022, the disposition of records. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2022. Next up is the proclamation for Lower Gwinnett Township to designate and celebrate Arbor Day on April 29th, 2022 for Tree City. Hold on one second. Let me just bring it up. It's a problem with dealing with paper. So as before, you can see the proclamation identifying that the Board of Supervisors of Lower Gwinnett Township in Montgomery County will proclaim Friday, April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day, and the last Friday of April for all future years as Arbor Day in the Township of Lower Gwinnett, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Is there any questions from the board? Nope. Are there any questions from the public?
I would like to just thank Jamie for all of her legwork to help us get this in place.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. Nothing online? Seeing none, we do have before us this proclamation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have proclaimed in Lower Gwinnett Arbor Day, April 29th, 2022. And for all future years, the last Friday of April. You guys don't seem as excited as I would have hoped. So next up
Best
is
is yet to
consideration of a
come.
proposal from the Communication Solution Group to perform an environmental priority survey for EAC. Township manager made me aware today that the chairs of the EAC have requested additional time to reconsider that proposal before we move forward. So I'm putting forth a motion at table, the consideration of that proposal. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We are tabling the communication solutions proposal for the EAC. Next up is the appointment of members to the newly formed historic committee. Janine?
Take it away. Everybody, I'm Janine Martin. I'm going to be one of the Board of Supervisor liaisons on the newly formed historic committee. And I see some people on here and both in the room who have applied. So I just want to thank everybody for applying. We did get a lot of interest, I think, for a Township Historic Committee. I was pleasantly surprised with all of the applications that we received. And everybody, I reached out to everybody who applied. Everybody seems very excited. I guess I just want to explain the process a little bit because it's a newly formed committee. We do not have bylaws drafted or a formal mission statement drafted. And we hope that with the appointment of the committee, and the committee then can work with the liaisons to draft bylaws, to come up with a mission statement. So that really is a product of the committee. So, you know, the first step is tonight, I'm going to make a recommendation for specific residents to be appointed to the committee. I hope that we can have a discussion and then we can appoint those members, and then they will meet and kind of have what our solicitor has described as a constitutional convention and come up with, you know, the terms and the mission statement. We did have a fair amount of applications. I spoke with our solicitor and our township manager and sort of other people in the community. I've looked at how our other committees are structured, and we all have a 7-member committee. So that's what I would recommend to the board, that we appoint 7 residents or applicants to the committee. And you know, that's the size of our EAC, that's the size of our parks, that's the size of our planning commission. So with that, I don't know if I can recommend the individuals one by one.
You can put forward a motion if you would like.
Okay, so with that, I would like to make a motion to appoint the following individuals to the Historic Committee. I'm going in alphabetical order here. Michael Brockway, Gloria Jones, Allison Klingler, Joe Langella, Michelle Mayer, Matthew Metcalf, and Linda Sachs. That's 7.
So we have before us a motion. I guess at this time, is there any comments, questions from the rest of the board? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none. So I would second that motion as far as the recommended 7 individuals. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have a historic committee, guys.
Look at us,
Thank you.
guys.
Appreciate it.
And I just want to say, you know, we weren't able to appoint everybody, but everyone who I spoke with was very excited to be involved and would remain involved even if they're not on the committee. So come to the meetings and participate. And I encourage the public to come because I'm excited about it and the committee is excited about it.
Thank you so much for your hard work and dedication to the Historic Committee. Next up, consideration of a purchase for a 2022 Ventrac tractor that I think Mike Tursky alluded to. Mr. Zollers.
Yes, thank you. In our capital budget this year, we allocated funds for the purchase of a Ventrac tractor. And we'd use it for cutting right-of-ways, basins, and trails. I think you remember last year, we had some complaints about our trail cutting. In the past, we've used our flail axe, which is attached to our big tractors, and they, I mean, they basically thrash the vegetation. They're not meant for trimming, let's say. This tractor, much better for that kind of job where it needs to be more surgically trimmed. The flail axe is just a drum that spins and it just thrashes things. This has the sickle bar attachment, which is like a big hedge trimmer. It scissors things off and makes nice cuts. Also, it's much more lightweight and smaller than our other tractors. So we've had this piece in and demonstrated it. We like what it can do, and we put for it in the budget, and we'd like to move forward with the purchase.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from the board? I remember your presentation, I think previously when we had some feedback around tearing up the meadow and kind of the butterflies and I'm not a.
This is much better for what we want to do
Absolutely.
there. And even with the basins, it's lighter. It won't sink in. It doesn't tear up what you're driving on when you're driving along trails. So I think this will make things a lot better for what we're trying to accomplish.
So the proposal, is this cost guaranteed? That was my only question.
This cost is guaranteed until the end of the month.
The end of this month?
This month,
Okay.
yes, like a couple days.
All right.
Yeah, the quote I provided was only good till the 17th. He
Okay.
verbally told me he could hold it till the end of the month.
All right.
There's
So it's crunch
probably a
time.
$4,000 price increase. After
Okay.
that.
So we have before us a copy of the proposal from Turf Equipment and Supply Company. The cost of the tractor with attachments is $56,832.30. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries for the purchase of a 2022 Ventrac tractor. Thank you so much, Mr. Zollers.
Thank you.
Oh, I think you're up again. Consideration of a purchase for the upgrade to our base station radio in the Public Works Department.
Yes, right now we don't have a base station radio, so this would be a big upgrade.
So it's an upgrade from tin cans.
Yes, from me yelling across. Yeah, we have communication by radio from truck to truck. We have communication, people working on the road with portable radio. We have no communication from the building to the trucks.
Gotcha.
We use cell phones a lot. Everybody has a cell phone. But if you were all out somewhere and I needed to tell you all the same message, I would have to make, 5, 6 separate calls. The radio, we can all talk to each other. And obviously texting's not ideal when you're driving a truck. So radio is still the best form of communication for that kind of thing. So we would like to reinstall a base station radio in the building and have communication for us.
Did we ever have?
Yes.
Oh, we did have it. Okay.
Yes, it must have, it's before my time, it must have broken and was just never replaced, but it is needed.
Okay. The only other question I had is how long is this? Oh, I had a couple questions. Is there any warranty on this? On this purchase as far as the mobile radios, and how long is this quote good for?
This quote is good for longer, another 30 days, but the price didn't change much since the last quote. So I don't think there's a big change.
Okay.
And there is a warranty, but I don't know what it is offhand. I could find it out for you though.
Okay. Is it so
It's a standard radio equipment warranty, and then the installer would stand by his
for a period of
installation
time?
for a shorter time, probably.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any additional questions. Are there any other questions from the board? Other questions from the public? We have before us the purchase of a upgrade or the establishment of a base station radio system in our Public Works Department. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't think there is anyone else. So we have agreed to purchase our base station radio in our Public Works Department. Thank you so much. Next up, we have committee reports. I'm not sure, we kind of had a report from Historic, Park and Rec, EAC, EMS. I'm not sure if all three or any combination of, I know the EAC has met. I know that Park and Rec has met. Does anybody want to comment on the happenings of those committees? Not all at once.
I would just like to invite Mark, if he'd like to say any words of update for the EAC.
Also, I just want to remind everyone we're celebrating. So it's Mark Schaefer, co-chair of the EAC. Just want to remind everyone we're celebrating Earth Month with a bunch of activities. We've got a bird walk on Sunday. We've got a presentation by Republic Services, who handles all the recycling for the township. If anybody has any questions about where your recycling goes and can you use jar lids or bottle caps or things like that, that's the time to find out. We've got a big splash in the newsletter coming out. So with all the other activities coming up, we've got the shredding and recycling. So there's a lot of things we're doing for Earth Month, and we appreciate the proclamation of the Arbor Day, which allows us, we are already a bird town. Now we're going to be a tree city. What else can we do here in Lower Gwinnett? So those are the main things. We're still with the tabled proposal. We do want to get a survey out to the community about their concerns about environmental issues. We just think we can do it in a more cost-effective way than that original proposal. And we are still working on things like a tree giveaway for the fall, which is another township does it. I think it was Whitpain does it. And we're going to go participate in theirs and learn everything and copy what we need to copy and then do one of our own. We're going to do a seed packet giveaway, hopefully, which will, again, things we can do for our community. And we're also looking at, I am working on labeling all the stream, a number, not all, but a number of the stream crossings in our community. So the public's aware that we really live in a watershed, and, you know, driving up and down the streets, we're really crossing many, many streams you don't realize are kind of underfoot. And we believe that the awareness of that kind of stuff will increase environmental concern and proper use. And I also want to extend thanks to both Jamie for her hard work on the Tree City and Michelle for her hard work in setting up our Zoom meetings. So we appreciate the support we get from the township and the board.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I don't know if Larry's online, but Mark, before you sit down, what are the implications? And maybe Jamie can chime in here too. It was not a trivial matter to get the designation for Arbor Day through the Arbor Day Foundation. There was quite a few stipulations, and I was just wondering if you could mention to the public what is the implication of having the Arbor Day?
Well, one is to have the Arbor Day and to recognize it in the community. The other is to have you don't need to have a shade tree committee, but to have an active effort in preserving and expanding the tree cover in your community, which we have a tree committee within EAC. And we do know we've got already on the books ordinances about native plantings. So for instance, when the Whole Foods went in, members of the EAC went over and counted trees and made sure that they were following the ordinance. And when Gwinnett Mercy put in one of their new driveways, you know, we checked the plans to make sure they were, you know, how many trees were moving and how many going in. So those are the kinds of things. So it's kind of behind the scenes, but we get to put up nice signs that say we're a tree city. So I think the burden is relatively small, but I think it's, again, just showing our commitment to the environment.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to just add that the importance of increasing our shade tree canopy not only gives us sort of a better quality of life, but it directly impacts our stream and watershed health. And that's something that we're really focusing on as a community. So thank you very much for your work and the tree committee's work, getting that in place. Thanks, Mark.
Anything else?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The only thing I'll say about Parks and Rec is, I mean, we did meet, there's a lot of fun events coming up. It's summer camp for the kids. But I want to focus on, they're having an Easter egg hunt this weekend, Saturday at 10 a.m. Just the first one since the pandemic. So bring out the kids and get some eggs.
Is it Penland Woods?
It's a Penland Woods, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much. EMS, is there any updates?
I gave an update last meeting. I don't think there has been any activity since, but Tessie and I will be recommending the appointment to the Community Ambler Association for the next meeting, if you can remember to include that on your agenda.
Okay, sounds good.
And the last thing is the Fall Fest Committee met and picked a date. So September 17th, 2022.
Yes. And you might need to say Fall Fest, formerly known as?
Fall Fest, formerly known as Pike Fest. We're sort of,
Oh, my goodness.
it's not going to
Change the
be on
name?
Bethlehem Pike. It's going to be they're going to close down Houston Road and it'll be on Houston Road. Maybe we'll use some of the front of the school district property and there'll be a 5K in the morning. And then they'll do food truck, all the vendors and everything will be kind of in the street fair, live music, all that good stuff. So save the date.
Save the date. Thank you so much. Next up is public comment. Is there any comment from the public on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, is there any comment online? Okay, managers report. Mr. Township Manager.
Just to reiterate, the e-cycle paper shredding day is on Saturday, April 9th from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, accepting anything with a plug for electronics and all your old paperwork that you want to get shredded will be in the parking lot here. But you'll need a form of ID to get through the gates.
Okay.
That's
It's
it.
gonna be right out there.
Is someone standing guard?
Of the driveway.
Right at the driveway, yeah. Kicking people out.
Very nice.
That's it.
All right, sounds good. Supervisor comments, Tessie.
Yeah.
I think your mic is on.
Yeah. That the PSATs is coming up and we have the opportunity, should we want to take advantage of it, to introduce what amounts to as a suggestion for legislation for PSATs to then lobby for in Harrisburg. And because of the COVID situation, we haven't really participated fully in PSATs until this year. So this is an opportunity for us to think about it. If there's something we feel strongly about that we'd like to recommend to PSATs, and then we'll vote at it this coming meeting. So
I just wanted to add, Mike and I attended Mikado dinner, I guess, for supervisors last Wednesday. And the conversation around PSATs and legislation was put forth. And we actually did vote there on legislation to put forth. So we missed you too, I guess, at that dinner, but that was part of our conversation at the Mikado dinner last Wednesday, the 23rd. But thank you. Kathleen?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the wireless realty, maybe direct some of your comments. I think it would be valuable information. I know, Janine, you're in a dead zone. I'm in a dead zone. I get calls or participate in conversations with numerous residents that complain about drop calls, no service, et cetera. And I think, if we really push it, and get a good critical mass of data endpoint, it could really enlighten us, give us some information that we're not aware of, and maybe improve a service that we all use, not just our phones, but our laptops, et cetera. And, you know, we can either take it and use it if there is a solution to help our cell phone service, but nothing lost if we don't. It's free. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Janine,
I don't have any other comment.
Mr. Twersky.
No comment.
Okay. I have no comment, but to remind everybody to come out to the Easter egg hunt and to all the celebrations for, I'm calling it Earth Month, I guess. The whole entire month of April, it seems like we're going to be celebrating the environment and the earth. So there's a multitude of activities to participate in, just encouraging everyone to participate. With that, though, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, meeting is adjourned.